Hi everyone, it's Ellen March with Sulky, and we're here in another installment of So What? And today I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about stabilizer. So we are right in the middle of National Embroidery Month, which is one of my favorite months because, as you all know, I love talking about embroidery of all kinds. Hand embroidery, free motion embroidery, but most of all, machine embroidery. So if you've got stabilizer questions that you need answers to, please comment on the post and I will be answering those live. If you have questions for what to pair with what, we've got some great tools that I'm going to share with you today that you can use to kind of troubleshoot as you're going along with your projects. So first, I wanted to just talk about the fact that we have this great stabilizer sale going on right now. I know, sale, 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 but this is a great opportunity to really stock up on your favorite sulky stabilizers. And if you're not really sure what your favorite stabilizers are or should be, you want to first ask yourself, or determine rather, what do you sew most often? Okay, what types of fabrics do you embroider most often? Do you like to embroider on t-shirts? Do you like to embroider on quilts? Do you do a lot of in the hoop projects? That type of thing. Now, if you're already super into machine embroidery, then obviously you know what stabilizers you use all the time. And thankfully, bolts and rolls of stabilizer are what's on sale. Okay, so you can get a bolt at a really great price right now, and the sale is good until Monday, until February 24th. That's 2020 for you all watching and listening later on. So be sure to grab those bolts and rolls. And for some of you who maybe are just starting machine embroidery or you dabble in machine embroidery, you might be thinking, when would I ever need an entire bolt of stabilizer? Well, let me just tell you, I had a friend who over Christmas time decided that she was going to make some freestanding lace Christmas villages. And she really didn't understand that it was going to take as much stabilizer as it ended up taking. Okay, so she bought a package of stabilizer, then needed another, then was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I just buy a bolt to start off with? So if you're doing a big project like that, it's a good thing to kind of think through how many of each piece are you going to make. You know, if you're doing assembly line style gifts, things like that, you might just find that it's more economical to get a bolt, especially when it's on sale. So I'm going to tell you kind of the stabilizers that I use most, and maybe you'll identify, and maybe that will help some of you who want to take advantage of the sale determine what you should kind of grab the most of and what's going to help with all of your machine embroidery projects, or at least a good number of them. So for me, I do get bolts of stabilizer. I do a lot of machine embroidery, and I love having them on hand, especially or even when I'm doing just regular sewing projects. I always find a need for stabilizer. You know, stabilizer can be used along the hem of a knit garment, and then you can just tear it away or wash it away after the garment is complete. That's a great use for stabilizer. It could be used for so many things. It could be used in place of interfacing. We just did a webinar on making a Sally Tomato cork bag, and we used Sulky Fusion Stitch as the interfacing because Jessica, the designer behind Sally Tomato, she really just liked how the body of the interfacing and the way it's applied, how it reacted with the cork, as opposed to interfacing. So sometimes you can substitute a good stabilizer for interfacing in a project as well. So if you get a bolt for machine embroidery, it might just be useful for other things that you're sewing. So it might be really worth that investment to you. So bolts that I have on hand are, I always want to have enough tear easy. This is tear easy stabilizer. And if you happen to lose the packaging, or the information is not with your stabilizer, and you're trying to determine if what you have on hand is a tearaway or a cutaway, it's as simple as trying to tear it, okay? So you could see when I tear this, it's literally tear easy, right? So it's very easy to tear. It requires almost no effort at all. If I had a cutaway, which I don't have a bolt of cutaway next to me, they're all on my shelf behind me, but a cutaway is going to be very hard to tear. It is not meant to tear. It's meant to stay with the fabric after embroidery or after it's applied to continually stabilize the garment or the project after washing and wearing. So it's not meant for tearing. It won't tear easy, and it's going to give you a lot more trouble if you try to tear it. So that's a good way of identifying, okay, that's a cutaway, that's a tearaway. Another bolt that I like to have is another tearaway variety, but it is Sulky Sticky Plus. This is one of my favorite stabilizers. You've heard me talk about it on So What many times about how much I love using it. But this is a tearaway adhesive-backed stabilizer. It has a release sheet on here, and you can see the release sheet has a grid on it, and it also has the name of the stabilizer printed on it. You actually can do hoopless embroidery with this, and I use so much of it. I love working with it for a variety of fabrics. It works for heavyweight fabrics, lightweight fabrics, fabrics that are not hoopable, such as fabrics that have a nap, fabrics that would be marred by the hooping process. So it's a really great sort of all-purpose stabilizer, if you will, to have on hand. So that's another one that's really great to stock up on, especially right now while it's on sale. The other stabilizer that I have on a bolt is kind of hidden by a pile of fabric right now, but it is, in fact, the Sulky Fuse and Stitch. It is a heavier weight stabilizer. It's great for heavier weight fabrics. And again, you fuse it, hence the name Fuse and Stitch. So it's going to be applied prior to hooping, okay? And it's a great stabilizer weight for a number of different fabrics and projects. So if you do have questions about what stabilizer do I use with this fabric, it's not always as cut and dry as here's the answer. And really, that is the number one question or number one sort of stress for people when they're doing machine embroidery is, how do we know that what we're using is the right thing? And how do we know that it's going to end up looking professional and have a great result, right? Well, before we go any further, I do want to mention that we are having a giveaway today during this live feed. If you happen to catch it later, you can also participate by commenting on this post. I usually don't pick the winner until the evening after the live post has gone out. So there are chances to win or there is a chance to win even if you're watching a little bit later. So don't fear. But by commenting, sharing, liking the post, otherwise engaging with the post today, you will be automatically sort of entered to win a prize or to receive a gift, I should say. And, oh, hi, Lynn. Thanks for joining. So today I'll be giving away a stabilizer sampler set. Now, the sampler set is 8.5 by 11 sheets of Sulky stabilizers. You will get the cutaway, the washaway, the tearaway varieties of Sulky stabilizer. So you can play around and see which one goes with the fabric that you use most often for embroidery. And another thing I like about the stabilizer sampler set is that you can create sort of a reference for yourself by using those sheets as little test stitch outs. So what I like to do, especially when I'm working with a brand new fabric or a brand new thread or a brand new technique, is I'll grab a stabilizer sampler set and I will embroider different combinations of thread, fabric, and stabilizer, and put them in a little 3-ring binder. And I wanted to show you, I've started one actually today. This is probably my 3rd sampler set that I've used, because I am experimenting with all of the Sulky line of threads and seeing how they react to the same exact design. So I have used the sampler to create little test stitch outs, and then you can see I've labeled it with the thread that I use in the needle and the thread that I have in the bobbin. Okay. Also, what I will then do is stick this into a clear sheet protector that has the little 3-ring holes on the side. And then I can write with dry erase marker or even permanent marker which stabilizer was used for that and which fabric was used for that. So it's a really great reference if you get the chance, or let's say you're always working with quilting cottons, that's all you're ever going to embroider. Take some quilting cottons that you have, pair it with a stabilizer sampler set, and get yourself a little notebook. And you can try different threads, you can try different needles, you could try different stitch outs, you know, line art versus really heavy thread work designs, and make yourself notes in your little 3-ring binder. And it is probably the best reference you can do are your own test stitch outs. That's what I have found, at least. So secondly, if you really don't know where to start, or you are working with a new fabric that you're not used to, or a new thread that you're not used to, at sulky.com, we have the Stabilizer Selector tool. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here. So this is a little screenshot of what you'll see when you go to sulky.com. Under Resources, it will say Stabilizer Selection Tool. And you can see that you have a little drop-down menu where you can choose the technique that you're doing. Let's say you're doing cut work, or you're doing embroidery on knits, or you're doing applique, something like that. Then you will select your fabric. Now, most of the fabrics out there are on this list. There are like 50 on the drop-down menu. If you can't find the one that you are using, choose something comparable. And then out is going to pop your recommended stabilizer to start with. And there might be 2 choices. It might say, you know, you could try Cutaway Plus or Fuse and Stitch. And it'll give you a little reason and a little blurb for, you know, what those stabilizers are good for. So that is a really, really great tool for you to reference at sulky.com. It's probably the most amazing thing that is out there as far as how to determine which stabilizer to use for your project. So I highly, highly suggest that you give that a try if you have questions as you're navigating through a project. So that is probably one of my favorite little tools on the Sulky website. All right, so I've got some questions coming in. Which stabilizers are used the most? Well, I mean, I can tell you from a sales perspective, sort of, that, you know, the Sulky Solvi is probably one of the best-selling stabilizers. You know, Sulky really pioneered the water-soluble stabilizer, and it just, nothing compares to it as far as a product that's going to completely wash away when you're done stitching on it. So I think that's probably definitely top 3 stabilizers that are the most popular. Also, Fabra-Solvi. Now, that's another one that I like to have on a bolt. Fabra-Solvi, again, water-soluble stabilizer, but it has like a fabric-like appearance. Now, it's not woven, it's more like compressed fibers, but it looks woven, and it adds sort of a thread count to your fabric while it's being embroidered without sort of stiffening it or things like this. And then it completely washes away when you are done. So that's another one that I highly recommend you stock up on while you can during this sale. What sulky product is comparable to no-show mesh, both fusible and cutaway? No-show mesh. Could you be more specific with that question as far as what brand of product you're talking about? I want to address it, but really, I would say the Soft and Sheer and Soft and Sheer Extra, because I think I know what you're talking about. Now, the Soft and Sheer Extra is fusible. The Soft and Sheer is cutaway. And those are going to be the closest you can get, I think, to this no-show mesh that you're talking about. Those are two of my favorite stabilizers, actually. Well, you know what? I keep saying these are my favorite stabilizers. Obviously, I like a lot of stabilizer. But I do use those quite a bit. And I think you'll really like them and find them comparable to what you're using currently. What stabilizer should we use on ready-to-wear? So that's kind of a loaded question because it's really going to depend on the fabric and the fabric weight. But if you're talking about a ready-wear garment that you can't hoop, like, for example, a collar on a shirt or a placket that has buttons on it, and maybe the button is interfering with the hoop, or a specific ready-made garment that you just can't fit that part in the hoop, I would go with the Sulky Sticky Plus that I talked about earlier, because you hoop only the stabilizer with the paper side up. You're going to score the paper within the inner hoop ring and then peel up the paper backing to reveal the sticky surface. Then you stick the item directly to the hoop stabilizer, put it on the hoop, and go to town with your embroidery. It's the best. All right, so I think I've caught up with the questions so far, but be sure to bring me more questions. Bring it on. I'm ready to answer them. And if you have questions after the live feed, please continue to put them in the comments. We are always, always here and available to help you through your projects and any questions that you might have regarding sulky products, especially, but really any sewing problems that you have. Okay, what about a flannel-lined windbreaker? What would you use to stabilize that? Flannel-lined. You know, okay, so a windbreaker is meant to be sort of waterproof. Am I correct? What I would do is try to separate the lining from the outer fabric along a seam. See if you can open it up where you want to embroider it. And then I would use, like, depending on the fabric weight, probably a cutaway, because I would think that you would not want it to stretch and want it to remain with the thread after embroidery to kind of continue to keep it stable. And then after the embroidery, we actually have a product called Stitch and Seal. And it's a stabilizer that helps retain the waterproof properties of the fabric that you're embroidering. So if you're embroidering a waterproof windbreaker and the needle penetrations are going to create little holes, then that part of your garment is no longer going to be waterproof because of the little holes. So what you can do is fuse a little piece of Stitch and Seal behind the embroidery, and that will sort of seal up those holes, making sure that the windbreaker is still waterproof. So after doing all of that, I would sort of reconstruct that area of the garment and re-sew it along the same seams as I took it apart. And you may have to take some photos along the way so that you can put it back together correctly, depending on the area of the garment that you're embroidering. So that's kind of a little bit more of a specific question, but hopefully that's a good answer. And if not, you can always email info@sulky.com with your specific question, and we're here for you. We'll walk you through the process, and we'll help you troubleshoot. So you can always use that as a resource. All right, so I'm almost out of time here, but I did want to reinforce our stabilizer sale again. It is until Monday, February 24th, 2020 at midnight. All rolls and bolts of stabilizer, 35% off. I mean, what a great deal. Am I right? Oh, yes, you never knew about Stitch and Seal. You know, it's kind of a new product for me too. I've only been with Sulky a little over a year, and I have experimented with every stabilizer and every thread except for that Stitch and Seal. So I just requested some because as we're moving into the rainy season and into spring, we definitely need to do some fun rainy day projects. And we have some in the queue, so I think you guys will really enjoy them. And they do involve some Stitch and Seal, so you'll get to see it in action. And I'm going to be playing around with it very shortly, actually. So there's a lot going on in Sulky Land. We are traveling and going out and about. There's, let's see, what's this weekend? Is it QuiltCon this weekend? So QuiltCon, there's the Nashville Needleworks is coming up. And so if you happen to be lucky enough to go to those shows, be sure to stop by the Sulky booth and say hello. You know, we always want to hear from you. Oh, Clovis, like your scissors pin. Thank you. Isn't it cute? So this scissors pin is like a little just enamel pin. And I'll try to get it a little closer. I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but you can actually find this at sulky.com. So get one yourself. All right. So I wanted to close by, you know, I was talking about being out and about. And I know on last week's episode, we did talk about sewing on the go and a few great travel opportunities we have this year with Sulky. And we are doing a cruise this summer to the Bahamas. So I will put the link in the comments for the cruise so y'all can check that out. And I'm just going to close with a little video that I created for our craft tours trip to Germany, because I really think that nothing explains this trip better than seeing the places that we will see. And so I'm going to play you that video. Please enjoy, and thanks for joining me.